In this video, we're going to build a custom Windows 11 image. If we want to build a custom Windows 11 image, we will need the Windows 11 installation files. Let's open our browser and Google Windows 11 ISO. The first link belongs to Microsoft and reads Download Windows 11. This is the one we want. Scroll a bit down and there is a Download Windows 11 ISO option. We'll go with that one. If you're new to this, you can read this before proceeding, but we'll just hit download. Choose your language from this drop-down list. We'll go with the English version. Hit confirm. This 64-bit download button is our download link. We'll save the file and call it Windows 11 ISO. Give it some time to download. While the Windows ISO is downloading, let's set up our virtual machine. Back in VirtualBox, we'll click on New to create a new VM. Name, Ready 11. The default location is fine. We don't have the ISO image yet. We'll leave the type as Microsoft Windows and the version is Windows 11 64-bit. Hardware, I usually crank the base memory and processors all the way up to give me as much oomph as possible. If you have multiple VMs running, you'll need to reduce it, but for the most part, for this VM, as long as you stay in the green, you should be Gucci. We'll also leave Enable EFI checked. Hard disk, here the defaults are fine for the most part. The only thing we'll need to change is the hard disk file type and variant to VHD, and that's so we can mount the image to disk management later on. Hit finish. We now have a basic layout for our VM. We can see that the optical drive is empty, and that is where we'll be loading our ISO into. Still waiting on that ISO. Let's configure everything else for the VM while we're waiting. Let's move it into a group. Right click, move to group, new. Right click, rename group. We'll name this WIAD for Windows Imaging and Deployment, since we'll be using this VM in our deployment video as well. Let's load our ISO and get the rest of our VM set up. Right click the VM and go to Settings, General, Advanced, set Shared Clipboard and drag and drop to bidirectional so we can move stuff in and out of the VM. Everything else is the default until we get to storage. Here we can load in our Windows 11 ISO. Click on the empty option with the disk next to it. Click on the disk icon on the right hand side. Choose a disk file. Navigate to your Windows 11 ISO and open. Network. Here we can disconnect our network for now to put in a background and set personalization settings. So we'll go to Attached to and select Not Attached. We'll enable this later on. Make sure all the other adapters are off. Make sure all the serial ports are off. I usually go with the latest USB version. And finally, we'll share a folder to make moving files into and out of the VM much easier. Click on the plus folder icon on the right, check Auto Mount. Click on the caret next to the folder path. Other, navigate to the folder you'd like to share. I have one I created called Transfer for this purpose. Select folder, OK, and OK. Double click the VM to boot it up. Eventually you'll get to the Windows 11 setup screen. We only have English as our language. Under time and currency format, we could leave it as the US, but a little tip, if you choose world, it'll be a little weird at first, but it contains very little bloatware compared to the other versions. The keyboard method is US. We want to install Windows 11 and we agree that everything, which is pretty much nothing, will be deleted, and check. Next, product key. We are creating a base image, so we don't really need a product key at this time. Choose I don't have a product key, select an image. This process works for Windows 11 Pro, so we'll pick that one. Accept the applicable notices and license terms. We've only got the one drive to install Windows onto, so next. Verify that this is what you want to do, and hit install. Eventually, Windows will install and you will be taken to the region screen. Now don't freak out, it's supposed to look like this. This is because we chose world. It'll reset when we're done, but here is where we would normally pick our region. Since we are creating a custom image, we want to boot Windows into what's called audit mode, which allows us to customize as we'd like, and then pack the image back up in an out-of-the-box state. So to get into audit mode, we need to be at the region screen and press Ctrl, Shift, and F3 at the same time. Give it some time, and when you get to the built-in administrator desktop, you are in audit mode. Let's clean up the start menu and the taskbar. Let's do a few taskbar settings to get rid of the extra stuff here and make it look a little better. The first thing we want to do is install the VirtualBox Guest Editions. Go to Devices, Insert Guest Edition CD Image. Now, at times you'll see a box pop up stating it's connected. If not, we can always go to File Explorer, this PC, and we should see it sitting here under Devices and Drives. Let's go in and we'll run the AMD 64 version. Click through. Defaults are fine. We'll leave it to reboot now and finish. We know it worked when we see this VirtualBox icon in the system tray, and we can expand the window. If we go back to this PC, we see the transfer folder is now there. Let's set our background. I have a wallpaper image in my transfer folder that I'll copy over and into the pictures folder. Right click and set it as desktop background. Nice. Let's go into settings and do a few things before we turn the internet on. Let's rename our computer to a prefix name like IT-XXXX. Go to personalization and go through the options. Under colors, I'll set it to dark mode and choose my accent color. We can see it's pretty basic like that. If we want something more robust, we can switch these two options here for a bit more. Much better. If we'd like to see this PC and some of the other built-in desktop icons on the desktop, we can go to Themes, Desktop Icon Settings, and check Computer for this PC. So one thing I should mention is that the lock screen is very temperamental in audit mode. It was one of the only things I could never get right. If you know the answer or have struggled with this as well, I'd love to hear about it, so drop it in a comment below. We can modify the settings, but adding a lock screen picture does not work in audit mode. If we try, we can see that it locks up and hangs there, and just hangs for a while. If we click out of this screen and go somewhere else, it'll unfreeze itself, but the images on the lock screen remain a mystery to me.
The inner machinations of my mind are an enigma.
Go through all the other personalization settings and configure it how you'd like. Now let's clean up Windows a little bit. I have a debloat script that I wrote that gets a good portion of the removals done, but this is where you would run any software or scripts that would assist you in debloating Windows. Simply copy the files into the transfer folder and then into the VM. We'll drag debloat.ps1 onto the desktop. Let's search for PowerShell and run as administrator. We want to run the script, so just for now, we'll set our execution policy to unrestricted. So set execution policy unrestricted. To check our execution policy, you can type in get execution policy, and we see that it is unrestricted. If we want to run the script, we can right click the script and select run with PowerShell. And there it goes. Let's restart. We can delete the script since we don't need it anymore. Let's change our execution policy back. Set execution policy restricted. And we can see that it's restricted. Now we'll go through and uninstall anything else we don't need in the start menu. Once the image looks much cleaner and lighter than it did, we'll shut it down and get everything to settle. Now is a great time to take a snapshot, just in case anything goes wrong moving forward. We have a point to roll the VM back to. The VM menu, Snapshots, click the Take button at the top. We'll name this one Offline since it contains the offline configurations. Go back to the VM menu, go to Details. Under Network, we see the Not Attached option. Click that and select NAT. Boot up the VM and we see we now have internet access. Open Edge, we'll download Firefox, 7-zip, VLC, KeyPass, and Windows. We're getting hung up on VLC, so we'll cancel and restart it. There we go. We'll run through all the installations. Keep in mind that any apps that grab information from the computer or usernames and other info like that may be best to install after Windows is deployed. After we install our stuff, let's delete the install files. Now we can arrange our desktop icons as we'd like. We can even add some in there if we'd like. If we want additional shortcuts, you can right click on an app, go to the file location, and copy the shortcut displayed there to the desktop. We'll rename some of them. That looks good. Let's open up Firefox and configure our browser. Change your settings and set a home page. I like to use About Profiles so that users can choose a profile when they boot Firefox out. Install your extensions. I'll put in multi-account containers because I love that extension. I use it every day. If we open up Firefox again, we see About Profiles, which is always nice. We can rename profiles. You can also remove them and add new ones. We can also configure extension settings. Let's remove the default containers and check select a container for each new tab. Let's put in some containers. and we can see we have to choose a container with each tab. Let's work on the taskbar settings. So pin whatever icons you'd like to your taskbar. We'll do File Explorer, Firefox, WindorsStat, Terminal, Camera, and KeyPass. Put them in whatever order you'd like. Unpin all your icons from the start menu. We need the locations of these icons, so we will pin them in that order to our start menu. There we have KeyPass, File Explorer, Firefox, WindorsStat, Terminal, and Camera. Open PowerShell. We see we are in the Users Administrator folder. Type in Export Start Layout Taskbar Icons.json. We see it pop into the Administrator folder. Let's open that up with Notepad, and here we see the locations of all the icons we want on the taskbar. Each icon is prefaced by an app type. In this case, it is a desktop application link path. We also have this package app ID, which is the UWA app user model ID apps. So we've got two types that will be formatted in two different ways. Now, before we do anything else, we need to change all of these escaped backslashes, which are the pairs of backslashes we see all over the place, to single backslashes. So our XML file recognizes it. So Control A to select all the text. Control F to open the find tool. Type in 2 backslashes in the find field. Click the carets on the left. In the replace box, type in a single backslash. Click on replace all. If done correctly, all of the double backslashes should now be single. Now I have a file that I put together based on Windows documentation that I called layout modification. If you watched my previous video on how to customize a Windows 10 image, you know this document all too well. But it has been tweaked since then, so make sure you pay attention to this part. We only have a taskbar section in this one, and it is formatted very similarly to the Windows 10 version, but it is a little different. We're going to go line by line and copy the app type and file path into individual lines in our layout modification document. We see we have 2 different line types set up. There will be apps with the UWA and app user model ID prefixes, and there will also be apps with the desktop app and desktop application link path prefixes. We see the first icon is a desktop app, so we will copy the file path between these 2 quotes and paste it into our desktop app line. We see we have a few more of the desktop application links, and so we'll copy the line and paste it into the file paths. Our last 2 are UWA apps, so we'll cut that UWA line and paste it at the bottom. We'll copy the link path, duplicate the line, and copy that last link path in. That should be about it. A couple of final notes about this: everything must be contained within the layout modification template heading. There needs to be an indentation after the beginning tag and before the end tag, or it will not work. Now, there are a few mistakes in here, which I'm going to leave in to show you guys how you can tell if the file is working or not. So we'll save the file. It needs to be placed in a very specific location. Copy the file and navigate to C, Users, Administrator. The folder you need isn't listed, so go into the bar at the top and type in app data, local, Microsoft, Windows, shell, and paste in your file. Since we have what we need from the taskbar icons file, let's delete it. Moving forward, if our layout modification file is working, it will automatically pin our icons to the taskbar. So to test this, we'll unpin our icons, and if we restart, they should auto-populate in there. Remember that there are some intentional mistakes left in the file, so we know it won't work when we restart the computer. Let's go ahead and unpin our start menu icon, since they were simply used as a reference point. And we see no icons. So to fix our file, navigate back to it at C, Users, Administrator, App Data, Local, Microsoft, Windows, Shell. Open in a notepad, and we see that we have a few extra colons there in the middle. Remove those, save the file, and reboot again. And success! We have our taskbar icons auto-populating. Now our start menu icons. Amazingly, there wasn't a lot of insight I could find online for this, but I think it's safe to say that I was overthinking it a bit too much, just like a lot of other people. So what we want to do is simply pin the icons we'd like to the start menu. No XML files are needed for this one at all. Finally, let's update. Go to Settings, Windows Update, Advanced Options, check Receive Updates for other Microsoft products so everything is updated at the same time. Go back and hit Check for Updates. While Windows updates, go through and configure your Windows settings. When you eventually get the "You're up to date" message, you are pretty much done with the configurations. Shut down the VM, take a snapshot, and call it configured. Boot up the VM, unpin your taskbar icons, open File Explorer, and create a new folder on the C drive called Wizards R Us. Back to this PC, and in our transfer folder, we have two files that we'll be using: copyprofile.xml and oobe.xml. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, I detail how to create these two in the How to Customize Windows 10 video, at around the 17-minute mark. We'll copy these files over into our Wizards R Us folder, eject VirtualBox Guest Editions. In the Start menu, look for Disk Cleanup and check everything. We want the image to be as light as possible. Delete the files, uninstall Guest Editions. If it gets weird and stuck like this, wait a few minutes and just power off the VM. It'll be okay. Make sure that you don't check the Restore Current Snapshot box. Boot the VM back up, unpin your taskbar icons. Let's grab Copy Profile from our Wizards R Us folder and move it to C, Windows, System32, Sysprep. We'll rename it to unattend.xml. Shut down the VM. I like to take a snapshot whenever I place an answer file, like Copy Profile or OOBE. We'll name it to Copy Profile. Boot the VM back up, unpin the icons. In the System Preparation tool, System Cleanup action is enter System out of the box experience. Check Generalize and shut down. Give it a while to process everything, boot it back up, and Windows will boot back to the region screen, like usual. Control Shift and F3 here to get back into audit mode. We see that Copy Profile did its job. The profile retained all of our configurations. Even Firefox carried over. Unpin your icons. Now we'll grab OOBE from Wizards R Us and move it to C, Windows, System32, Sysprep. We'll delete our unattend Copy Profile file and paste in the OOBE file. Rename it to unattend. Shut down the VM, take a snapshot and call it OOBE. Boot the VM back up one final time, unpin the icons. In the System Preparation tool, cleanup action is OOBE, check Generalize, and shutdown options are set to shutdown. Now for the most important snapshot. We'll use this one to create our image. Take a snapshot and call it Ready for Capture. To capture our image, we need to do a few things. First, we need to take the most recent snapshot and mount it to Disk Management. You can see where your snapshots are by right-clicking the VM and going to Settings, and it'll be listed under the Advanced Snapshot folder path. Navigate to the folder to see your snapshots. Open Disk Management and go to Action, Attach VHD, check Read Only, click on Browse, and navigate to your snapshot. Usually I would sort by date, but it's the smallest file in here, so I'll go by size. But it will be the most recent file. Typically, you would get new drives popping up in this PC, but we don't have that here. We don't even have a drive letter to put into our command. So how are we going to capture this image? Go back to Disk Management. The mounted VHD is this blue guy here. Right click on it and go to Properties. Go to the Security tab. Here we have an object name. This is what we will use instead of the drive letter. Copy it out. We'll paste it in here in our notes for a moment and modify our command to incorporate it. Now we will paste it into this portion right after CaptureDir. We can also change the name of our image to OuterSpace, and we'll change the name to OuterSpace.wim. Copy the command out and into the administrator command prompt, and that will give us a custom Windows 11 image. I hope you found this video useful. If this content is valuable to you, please remember to like and subscribe. If you'd like to learn more about Windows imaging and deployment, or just cybersecurity in general, make sure to watch my next video, How to Air-Gap Deploy Windows. No external internet connection required. And if you're curious about how to customize a Windows 10 image, I've got a video on that as well. So go and check it out. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time, see ya.